The ship was cold. Park Jun-ho had noticed this the moment he stepped aboard the Valoran transport vessel 3 days ago. The aliens who ruled this part of the galaxy liked their environments cool and dry. Nothing like the warm summers of Seoul, where he had grown up. He pulled his diplomatic coat tighter around his shoulders and stared out the window at the approaching planet. The Valoran homeworld was a massive thing, 3 times the size of Earth, with swirling purple clouds and vast silver cities that covered entire continents. Jun-ho had studied the images during his journey, memorizing every detail. He knew the names of their leaders, their history, their conquests. He knew that the Valoran Empire had destroyed or enslaved over 400 species in their 12,000 years of existence, and he knew that 3 months ago, they had turned their eyes toward Earth. "Ambassador, we will arrive in 20 minutes, said Kim Yuna, his aide, as she entered the observation room. She was young, only 28, but she had a sharp mind and steady nerves. Jun-ho had chosen her specifically for this mission because she did not panic easily. They would need that quality today. "How are you feeling?" Jun-ho asked without turning from the window. Yuna stood beside him and looked at the alien world growing larger before them. "Nervous," she admitted. "But ready." Jun-ho nodded. 3 months ago, the Valorans had sent a fleet to Earth's solar system. Without any warning or communication, they had opened fire on the orbital research stations that circled Earth. 14,000 people had died in less than an hour. Scientists, engineers, families who lived and worked in space. The attack had lasted only minutes, and then the Valoran fleet had simply left, leaving behind burning wreckage and floating bodies. 1 week later, Earth received a message. The Valoran Empire had claimed the entire sector of space that included Earth's solar system. Humanity was ordered to send representatives to discuss the terms of their integration into the Empire. The message made clear that resistance was not an option. The Valorans had faster-than-light travel, weapons that could crack planets, and fleets that numbered in the millions. Earth had none of these things. The world governments had argued for weeks about how to respond. Some wanted to fight, even though they knew it was hopeless. Others wanted to surrender immediately and hope for mercy. In the end, they had chosen a middle path. They would send diplomats to negotiate, to buy time, to learn everything they could about their enemy. Park Jun-ho had volunteered for the mission. He was 42 years old, a career diplomat who had spent 20 years negotiating trade deals and peace treaties between Earth's nations. He spoke 7 languages and had a reputation for staying calm under pressure. When he told the United Nations Council that he would go to the Valoran homeworld, several members had tried to talk him out of it. They all knew this was likely a one-way trip. "I have no children," Jun-ho had said simply. "No spouse waiting for me. And someone has to go." The transport ship began its descent through the purple clouds. Jun-ho watched as the silver cities came into view, their towers reaching kilometers into the sky. The Valorans were large creatures, averaging 3 meters tall, with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around their heads and 4 powerful arms. They had evolved as predators on a high-gravity world, which explained their size and strength. A single Valoran could tear a human apart with its bare hands. The ship landed on a platform outside the largest building Jun-ho had ever seen. The High Council chamber was a pyramid of black stone that stretched so high its top disappeared into the clouds. Guards waited for them at the bottom of the landing ramp. These Valorans wore armor of gleaming metal and carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Ambassador Park," one of them said through a translator device mounted on its chest. "You will follow us. Your aide may accompany you, but you are forbidden from carrying any weapons or communication devices." Jun-ho nodded and handed over his small tablet computer. Yuna did the same. They had expected this. The guards searched them thoroughly, their large hands surprisingly gentle, and then led them into the pyramid. The inside of the building was even more impressive than the outside. The walls were covered with carvings that depicted Valoran history, showing their rise from primitive hunters to masters of the stars. Jun-ho saw images of conquered worlds, of alien species kneeling before Valoran rulers, of great battles where Valoran fleets darkened the skies of 100 planets. It was meant to intimidate, and he had to admit it was working. They walked for nearly 30 minutes through winding corridors and massive halls before finally reaching the council chamber. The room was circular, with a domed ceiling that showed a live view of the stars above. Dozens of Valorans sat in elevated seats arranged in rings around the center of the room, all of them staring down at the two small humans who had just entered. At the highest point sat the High Arbiter, a Valoran named Torvak. He was old by his species standards, his gray skin marked with scars from ancient battles, his 6 eyes focused on Junho with an expression that might have been curiosity or contempt. It was hard to tell with alien faces. "The human representatives," Torvak announced, his voice booming through the chamber. "You have traveled far to kneel before us." Junho did not kneel. He stood straight, his hands clasped behind his back, and met Torvak's gaze without flinching. Beside him, Yuna did the same. A murmur went through the assembled council members. They were not used to seeing conquered species stand tall. "I am Ambassador Park Junho of the United Earth Government," Junho said, his voice calm and clear. "This is my aide, Kim Yuna. We have come to speak with you about the attack on our orbital stations." Torvak made a sound that his translator rendered as laughter. "Attack? That was not an attack, little creature. That was a demonstration, a small show of what happens to species that do not recognize the authority of the Valoran Empire. 14,000 of our people died," Junho said quietly. "A small number," Torvak replied with a wave of one massive hand. "Your planet holds billions. Consider it a mercy that we did not kill more. Consider it a gift that we are offering you integration rather than extermination." Junho felt Yuna tense beside him, but she remained silent. That was good. They had agreed beforehand that he would do all the talking. "Integration," Junho repeated, tasting the word. "Tell me, High Arbiter, what does integration mean for our people?" Torvak leaned forward, his 6 eyes gleaming. "It means you serve the Empire. Your resources become our resources. Your people work where we tell them to work. Your world becomes another jewel in our crown." He spread all 4 of his arms wide. "Be grateful, human. Many species have begged for this opportunity. You are being given it freely." Junho was silent for a long moment. He thought about the 14,000 dead. He thought about the burning stations, the bodies floating in the cold vacuum of space. He thought about Earth, his home, now under the shadow of these monsters who called murder a gift. "I understand," he said finally. "May I ask when these terms would take effect?" "Immediately," Torvak said. "You will sign the documents of surrender before you leave this chamber. Your planet will receive our administrators within the month. Resistance will be met with complete destruction." He paused, studying Junho with renewed interest. "You are taking this better than most species. Perhaps humans are more intelligent than we assumed." Junho allowed himself a small smile. "Perhaps we are. High Arbiter, perhaps we are." The council chamber fell into an expectant silence. Every Valoran in the room waited for the human ambassador to take the surrender documents, to sign away his planet's freedom, to kneel as so many species had knelt before. It was the natural order of things. The strong ruled, the weak served. This was how the universe had always worked. Park Junho did not move toward the documents. Instead, he reached slowly into the inner pocket of his coat. Several guards raised their weapons, but Junho's movements were calm and deliberate. He pulled out a small device, no larger than his palm, and held it up for the council to see. "Before we discuss any documents," Junho said, "I have something I would like to show you." High Arbiter Torvak made a gesture with one of his 4 hands. "We did not give you permission to bring devices into this chamber. Your guards missed it." Junho replied simply, "It is very small. Human technology may be primitive compared to yours, but we are clever about hiding things." A ripple of unease moved through the council. Torvak's 6 eyes narrowed. "What is this device?" "A projector," Junho said. "Nothing dangerous. I simply want you to see something before we continue our conversation." He pressed a button, and suddenly the air above his head filled with images. They were photographs and videos from Earth's orbital stations, taken in the minutes before and during the Valoran attack. The council members watched as Valoran warships appeared out of nowhere, their weapons charging with deadly light. They watched as beams of energy tore through station hulls like paper. They watched as men and women and children tried to run to escape pods that would never launch in time. The final images were the worst. bodies floating in space, their faces frozen in expressions of terror and pain. A mother holding her infant child, both of them still and cold, an old man reaching toward a window, as if trying to touch the earth one last time before he died. 14,207 people, Junho said, his voice steady despite the horror on display above him. That is not a number, High Arbiter. Those were lives. Each one had a name, a family, hopes and dreams that will never be fulfilled. Torvak shifted in his seat. This changes nothing. Death is common in the universe. Your species should have accepted our authority when we first made contact. The fault lies with you. You made no contact, Junho said sharply. You simply appeared and started killing. There was no warning, no demand, no chance to surrender. You murdered 14,000 innocent people because you could, because we wished to demonstrate our power, Torvak corrected. Now you understand what we are capable of. Now you know the price of defiance. Junho turned off the projector and returned it to his pocket. When he looked up at the High Arbiter again, something had changed in his eyes. The calm diplomatic mask was still there, but beneath it burned something else. Something cold and hard and very, very human. High Arbiter Torvak, Junho said, and his voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. I have not come here to sign your documents. I have not come here to surrender my planet. I have not come here to beg for mercy or negotiate terms of slavery. The council erupted in angry murmurs. Several members stood from their seats, their 6 eyes blazing with outrage. Guards moved closer to the 2 humans, weapons raised and ready. Torvak raised a hand for silence. His expression had shifted from contempt to curiosity. Then why have you come, little human? To die in a pointless gesture of defiance? We can arrange that quite easily. I have come to deliver a message, Junho said. A message from the people of Earth to the Valoran Empire and all its conquered subjects. He stepped forward, his shoes clicking against the stone floor. Yuna remained where she was, her face pale but her posture straight. She knew what was coming. They had planned this moment together during the long journey through space. 3 months ago, you attacked our home, Junho said, each word clear and precise. You killed our people. You thought this would break us, would make us afraid, would convince us to bow down and accept your rule. He stopped walking when he was directly below Torvak's elevated seat, craning his neck to look up at the massive alien. You were wrong. Torvak leaned forward. You dare to threaten us? You have no fleet. You have no weapons that can harm us. Your planet cannot even defend itself from a single one of our ships. 3 months ago. That was true. Junho agreed. But you made a mistake, High Arbiter. A mistake that every empire in history has made before eventually falling. And what mistake is that? Junho smiled. But there was no warmth in it. You assumed that because we were weak, we would stay weak. You assumed that because we could not fight back then, we could never fight back. You did not understand what humans do when someone attacks our home. He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a second device. This one was even smaller, just a simple communication unit that looked like a black button. We unite, Junho said. We work together. We take our grief and our anger and our fear, and we turn it into fuel. In 3 months, every nation on Earth stopped fighting each other. Every scientist, every engineer, every factory and laboratory and university focused on a single goal. He pressed the button. You gave us the motivation we needed, Junho continued. And you gave us something else. When your ships destroyed our stations, the debris fell through our atmosphere. Pieces of your weapons, your engines, your technology. We collected every fragment. We studied every piece. Torvak's 6 eyes went wide. That is impossible. Your species lacks the knowledge to understand our technology. We learn fast, Junho said simply. It is one of our few gifts. We are not the strongest species, or the largest, or the oldest. But when we need to learn something, when our survival depends on it, we can achieve remarkable things. The chamber's lights flickered suddenly. Warning alarms began to sound somewhere in the distance. Torvak looked around in confusion as his council members began receiving urgent messages on their personal devices. What is happening? Torvak demanded. A Valoran officer rushed into the chamber, his movements frantic. High Arbiter, our orbital sensors have detected unknown vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel. They appeared without warning, directly above our planet. How many ships? What species? The officer hesitated, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in what Junho had learned was a sign of extreme distress. 12 vessels. High Arbiter, the configuration is unknown, but... He looked down at the small human standing in the center of the chamber. They are human. The silence that followed was absolute. Every Valoran in the room turned to stare at Park Junho, who stood with his hands clasped behind his back and a cold smile on his face. You attacked our home. Junho said softly. Did you really think we would not respond? Torvak rose from his seat, his massive form towering over the chamber. 12 ships? You bring 12 ships against the might of the Valoran Empire? We have millions of warships at our command. Yes. Junho agreed. But they are not here. And we are. He looked up at the High Arbiter. And for the first time, he allowed the full weight of his anger to show in his eyes. Now, shall we discuss terms again? High above the purple clouds of the Valoran homeworld, Vice Admiral Choi Minji stood on the bridge of humanity's first faster-than-light warship. The ESS Retribution was not a large vessel by galactic standards. It was only 300 meters long, with a crew of 250. But it represented something that no one in the galaxy had thought possible. Humans had gone from primitive chemical rockets to interstellar travel in 90 days. Admiral, the Valoran Defense Fleet is mobilizing, reported Lieutenant Han Teho from the sensor station. I count 412 ships moving to intercept us. Minji nodded calmly. She was 51 years old, with gray streaking her black hair and deep lines around her eyes. She had spent 30 years in Earth's navies, commanding submarines and aircraft carriers, fighting in small conflicts that now seemed meaningless compared to what they faced today. Expected, she said. What about Ambassador Park's signal? Received and confirmed, Teho replied. He has begun the proclamation. We are right on schedule. Minji turned to look at the 11 other ships that held formation around the Retribution. Each one had been built in secret, in underground facilities scattered across Earth. Each one was crewed by volunteers who knew they might never return home. They had names that reflected humanity's determination. The ESS Defiance, the ESS Resolution, the ESS Vengeance, the ESS Hope. Open a channel to all ships, Minji ordered. Her communications officer, a young woman named Kang Bora, pressed a series of buttons. Channel open. Admiral, this is Admiral Choi to all vessels, Minji said, her voice steady and strong. We have trained for this moment. We have prepared for this moment. Remember why we are here. Remember the 14,000 who died. Remember that Earth is counting on us. She paused, looking out at the alien world below them. We are humanity's answer to tyranny. We are the message that no one attacks our home without consequence. Hold your positions and await my command. Choi out. The channel closed. Bora turned to look at her admiral with something like awe in her eyes. Admiral, do you really think we can win against 400 ships? Win? Minji smiled slightly. We are not here to win a battle, Lieutenant. We are here to send a message. And sometimes, the message is more important than the victory. Down on the planet's surface, the council chamber had descended into chaos. Valoran officials shouted at each other. Guards ran in all directions. And warning sirens continued to wail throughout the massive pyramid. Only Park Junho and Kim Yuna remained calm, standing together in the center of the storm like rocks in a river. High Arbiter Torvak had recovered from his initial shock. He descended from his elevated seat and approached the human ambassador, his massive form casting a shadow over Junho like a mountain blocking the sun. 12 ships, Torvak repeated, his voice dangerous. Even if your primitive species has somehow stolen our technology, 12 ships are nothing. Our defense fleet will destroy them within the hour. Perhaps, Junho said calmly. But before you give that order, there are some things you should know about those ships. What things? Junho reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. He held it up for Torvak to see. This contains all the technical specifications of our new fleet. I offer it to you freely, so that you understand exactly what you are dealing with. Torvak snatched the chip from Junho's hand and inserted it into his personal device. As he read the data, his 6 eyes grew wider and wider. The other council members crowded around him, their expressions shifting from anger to disbelief to something that might have been fear. "This is impossible," Torvak whispered. "These power readings, these weapon specifications, this is beyond anything we possess." "As I said," Junho replied, "we learn fast." Torvak looked up from the data, his 6 eyes now fixed on Junho with new intensity. "You did not simply copy our technology. You improved it. In 3 months, you created weapons more powerful than anything the Empire has developed in 12,000 years. We had motivation," Junho said simply. "You killed our people. You threatened our home. There is nothing humans cannot accomplish when we are properly motivated." Commander Lee Sunwoo, posted at the main sensor station in the Valoran Command Center, called out urgently, "High Arbiter, our fleet is engaging the human vessels, but something is wrong with our readings." The main display screen activated, showing the battle that was beginning in orbit. The Valoran warships were massive, each 1 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that had conquered hundreds of worlds. They opened fire on the tiny human fleet with everything they had. The human ships did not dodge. They did not retreat. They simply absorbed the attacks. "Energy shields," Lee Sunwoo said in disbelief. "Their shields are deflecting our weapons. All of them. Nothing is getting through." On the screen, the ESS Retribution turned slowly to face the largest Valoran battleship. A beam of brilliant blue light shot from its bow. Faster than anything the Valorans had ever seen, the battleship's shields flared, flickered, and failed. A second beam struck the ship directly, and it exploded in a flash of light. The entire council chamber fell silent. "One shot," Torvak said, his voice barely above a whisper. "One shot destroyed our largest warship." "We did not come here to fight," Junho said. "We came here to talk. But we wanted you to understand that if we choose to fight, we will win. Your empire has ruled through fear for 12,000 years. Today, you will learn what fear feels like from the other side." Admiral Choi's voice came through Junho's earpiece. "Ambassador, we have engaged their fleet. 17 enemy vessels destroyed. No damage to our ships. Awaiting further orders." "Hold position," Junho replied quietly. "No further attacks unless they continue to engage." In orbit, the Valoran fleet had stopped firing. The remaining ships hung motionless in space, their commanders unsure what to do. They had never faced an enemy they could not destroy. They had never felt the cold grip of doubt that now seized their hearts. Torvak turned back to Junho. The arrogance was gone from his face, replaced by something raw and uncertain. "What do you want, human? Why have you come here?" "I told you," Junho said. To deliver a message, he stepped closer to Torvak, close enough that he had to crane his neck to look up at the alien's face. Despite the vast difference in their sizes, there was no doubt in that moment who held the power. "You attacked our home," Junho said, his voice cold and hard. "You killed our people. You expected us to break, to bow, to beg for mercy. Instead, we built a fleet that makes your greatest weapons look like toys." He reached into his pocket and pulled out another data chip. "This contains our terms. Full reparations for the attack on our stations. Recognition of human space as sovereign territory. A formal apology broadcast to every world in your empire. And freedom for every species you have conquered in the last 1,000 years." Torvak stared at the chip as if it were a poisonous snake. "You cannot demand such things, even if you destroy our fleet here. We have millions more ships scattered across the galaxy. Then recall them," Junho said simply. "Bring them all. We will build more ships. We will build faster than you can imagine. And every ship you send against us will be destroyed." He pressed the data chip into Torvak's massive hand. "You have 1 standard day to consider our terms. If you refuse, or if you try to harm us, Admiral Choi will begin bombarding your cities." Junho paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We do not want to kill civilians. We are not like you. But if you force us to choose between your people and ours, we will choose ours every single time." He turned and walked back to where Yuna stood waiting. "We will return tomorrow for your answer," Junho said without looking back. "I suggest you think carefully about what kind of future you want for your empire." The two humans walked out of the council chamber, leaving behind a room full of shocked and terrified aliens who were only just beginning to understand what they had awakened. The night on the Valoran homeworld lasted 18 hours. Park Junho and Kim Yuna spent most of it in a small room that had been assigned to them, waiting for news from the council. Guards stood outside their door, but they were no longer there to keep the humans prisoner. They were there for protection, in case any angry Valoran decided to take revenge on the small creatures who had humiliated their empire. "Do you think they will accept our terms?" Yuna asked. She sat on a chair by the window, looking out at the alien city that stretched to the horizon. The buildings glowed with soft purple light, and strange vehicles moved through the sky like fireflies. Junho stood at the opposite window, his hands clasped behind his back. "No," he said honestly. "Not yet. They have ruled the galaxy for too long. They cannot accept that a species they considered insects has become their equal in a single season." "Then why are we here?" "To plant a seed," Junho replied. "Fear is a seed. Doubt is a seed. Right now, every member of that council is lying awake, wondering if everything they believed about the universe was wrong. They are wondering if their empire is truly as powerful as they thought. They are wondering what else humans might accomplish if given more time." He turned to look at her. "That wondering is the first crack in their armor. It will spread." The next morning, Junho and Yuna were escorted back to the council chamber. The room was just as vast as before, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The Valoran officials sat in their elevated seats with expressions of exhaustion and worry. Many of them had clearly not slept. High Arbiter Torvak looked older than he had the day before, as if the night had aged him 100 years. "Ambassador Park," Torvak said as the humans took their position in the center of the room. "The council has spent the night discussing your terms." "And?" Junho asked calmly. Torvak's 6 eyes hardened. "We reject them." A murmur went through the council, but Junho showed no reaction. He had expected this. "The Valoran Empire does not surrender to inferior species," Torvak continued, his voice growing stronger. "Your fleet may have surprised us yesterday, but we have already sent messages to our nearest battle groups. Within 2 weeks, 10,000 warships will arrive in this system. Your 12 vessels will be overwhelmed and destroyed." "I see," Junho said. "And what of our other demands? The reparations? The apology? The freedom of conquered species?" "Denied. All of them." Torvak rose from his seat, his massive form towering over the chamber. "You have made a grave mistake coming here, human. You have revealed your capabilities. Now we know what you can do, and we will prepare accordingly. Your surprise advantage is gone." Junho nodded slowly. "High Arbiter, may I ask you a question?" "Speak." "In 12,000 years of conquest, has any species ever defied you like this?" Torvak hesitated. "No," he admitted. "All others submitted once they understood our power. And in 12,000 years, has your empire ever lost a battle? Small skirmishes, perhaps, but no significant defeats." Junho smiled. "But there was no joy in it." "Then you do not know how to lose. You do not know how to adapt when your enemy is stronger than you expected. This is your weakness." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his communication device. "Admiral Choi, please begin demonstration sequence Alpha." High above the planet, Admiral Choi Minji received the transmission on the bridge of the Retribution. She looked out at the Valoran defense fleet, which had reformed into a defensive formation around the planet. They were keeping their distance from the human ships now, unwilling to engage after the losses they had suffered the day before. "All ships, target the orbital station at coordinates 7-7 Mark IV, Minji ordered. Single beam. Low power. We want to destroy the station, not the planet behind it." Lieutenant Han Teho programmed the coordinates. "Target locked, Admiral. Ready to fire on your command." Minji watched the station on her display. It was a military installation, a command center for the Valoran fleet. Her sensors showed only minimal life signs inside, most of the personnel having been evacuated during the night. "Good. She had no desire to kill more than necessary. Fire. A single beam of blue light shot from the Retribution's main cannon. It crossed the distance to the orbital station in less than a second and struck with surgical precision. The station did not explode dramatically like in the movies. It simply ceased to exist, reduced to atoms by the concentrated energy beam. In the council chamber, the Valorans watched in horror as one of their most important military installations vanished from their screens. That station was protected by the strongest shields our empire possesses, Torvak said quietly. It should have been able to withstand bombardment from 100 ships. It could not withstand one shot from ours, Junho replied. High Arbiter, I want you to understand something. We did not come here to conquer your empire. We did not come here for revenge. Although we would be justified in seeking it, we came here because we want peace. He stepped closer to Torvak. But peace requires respect. Peace requires acknowledgement that humans are not inferior beings to be enslaved or exterminated. Your empire has never given that respect to any species. Today, you will learn to. Torvak's 4 hands clenched into fists. You destroyed our station. You expect us to respect you for this? I expect you to understand the situation clearly, Junho said. That station was empty. We checked before we fired. We could have targeted your cities, your civilian populations, your planetary infrastructure. We chose not to. He paused, letting the words sink in. We are not like you. We do not kill innocent people to prove our strength. But make no mistake, High Arbiter, if you refuse to negotiate, if you send your 10,000 ships against us, we will defend ourselves, and we will win. 10th Other Zanari. Commander Lee Sunwoo rushed into the chamber with a data pad in his hands. High Arbiter, we have finished analyzing the human weapon that destroyed our station. The power output was... He hesitated, looking at the numbers as if he could not believe them. The power output was less than 1% of the weapon's maximum capacity. The chamber fell completely silent. 1%, Junho repeated softly. We showed you the smallest fraction of what we can do. Imagine what happens if we show you the rest. Torvak sank back into his seat. For the first time in his long life, he looked genuinely afraid. What do you want from us, human? I told you yesterday. Reparations, recognition, an apology, freedom for the conquered. Junho clasped his hands behind his back. And one more thing. What? We want to talk to them, the species you have conquered. We want to give them a choice. The same choice we are giving you. Join us, or stand against us. Build a new future, or cling to the old ways until they drag you down. Yuna stepped forward, holding out a new data chip. This contains information about our technology. Not weapons, but communication systems, medical advances, agricultural techniques. We are willing to share these things with the Empire. Freely. If you agree to our terms. Torvak took the chip slowly. You would give us your secrets? We would rather have allies than enemies, Junho said. We would rather trade than fight. Humans are not a warlike species by nature. High Arbiter, we fight only when we must. But when we must, we fight harder than anyone else in the universe. He turned and began walking toward the door. Wait, Torvak called out. Where are you going? Junho looked back over his shoulder. I am giving you time to think. I will return in 1 hour. When I do, you will either accept our terms, or you will refuse them. His eyes hardened. If you refuse, we will leave peacefully. But the next human fleet that comes to this world will not be here to talk. He walked out of the chamber with Yuna beside him, leaving behind a room full of Velorans who were finally beginning to understand what it meant to face an enemy who would not break. 1 year had passed since the day Park Junho stood before the Veloran High Council and changed the course of galactic history. The Velorans had accepted the terms. They had no choice. In the hour that Junho gave them to think, 3 more human ships arrived in orbit, bringing the total to 15. Sensors detected another wave of vessels approaching from the direction of Earth. The message was clear. Humanity was not bluffing, and their fleet was growing larger by the day. High Arbiter Torvak had been forced to sign the agreement in front of his entire council. Reparations were paid to the families of the 14,000 who died. Human space was recognized as sovereign territory. A formal apology was broadcast to every corner of the Valoran Empire, reaching trillions of beings who had never heard a Valoran say sorry for anything. And most importantly, the conquered species were given their choice. The response had been overwhelming. Within months, 17 different species had declared independence from the Valoran Empire. Some joined humanity in a new alliance called the Interstellar Assembly. Others chose to rebuild their civilizations alone, grateful for the chance that had been denied them for centuries. A few remained loyal to the Empire, either out of fear or genuine belief in Valoran rule. Humanity accepted their choice without judgment. Ambassador Park Jun-ho became the first human to address the newly formed assembly. He stood in a great hall on a neutral space station, surrounded by representatives from dozens of species. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some covered in fur or scales or crystalline structures that caught the light. They looked nothing like humans, but they all shared one thing in common. They were free. 1 year ago, Jun-ho said, his voice carried by translators to every corner of the room. Humanity was alone and afraid. We had just lost 14,000 of our people. We faced an empire that had crushed hundreds of species before us. By all logic, we should have surrendered. We should have accepted our fate and become another conquered world in a long list of conquered worlds. He paused, looking around at the assembled representatives. We chose differently. We chose to fight. We chose to build. We chose to unite. And today, we stand here not as conquerors ourselves, but as partners. We do not want to replace one empire with another. We want to build something new, something better. A galaxy where every species has a voice, where strength is measured not by how many you can kill, but by how many you can lift up. Admiral Choi Minji sat in the front row, wearing a new uniform with new medals. She had been promoted to Fleet Commander of the United Earth Defense Force, the highest military rank any human had ever held. Her fleet had grown from 12 ships to over 100, each one crewed by humans who had volunteered to defend their home among the stars. Lieutenant Han Tae-ho sat beside her, now a captain with his own command. The ESS Perseverance was smaller than the Retribution, but it was fast and nimble, perfect for the exploration missions that Tae-ho now led along the edges of known space. He had discovered 3 new star systems in the past 6 months, each one filled with wonders that humans had never imagined. Kim Yuna had been promoted to Deputy Ambassador, working alongside Jun-ho to manage the complex relationships between Earth and its new allies. She had grown more confident in the past year, more certain of her place in history. She still remembered standing in that council chamber, terrified but determined not to show it. That memory drove her forward every day. After Jun-ho finished his speech, he returned to his office on the new Earth Station 1. The station orbited above the rebuilt orbital facilities, a symbol of humanity's recovery and growth. The memorial light still shone for the 14,000, visible from every window. Jun-ho made sure of that. No matter how much humanity achieved, they would never forget why they had started this journey. A message waited for him on his desk. It was from Dr. Yoon Hyeon, the scientist who had led the team that cracked faster than light travel in just 73 days. She was announcing the next phase of her research. Not weapons this time, but terraforming technology that could transform dead worlds into living ones. We proved we could destroy, Dr. Yoon had written at the end of her message. Now we prove we can build. That is what makes us human. Jun-ho smiled and filed the message. He would attend the press conference where she announced her findings. He would watch humanity take another step toward a future that had seemed impossible just 1 year ago. A knock came at his door. He looked up to see Yuna entering with a datapad in her hands. The Valoran Reform Council has sent another request, she said. They want to establish a permanent embassy on Earth. They say they want to learn from us. Jun-ho raised an eyebrow. Learn from us? Interesting choice of words for a species that once considered us insects. Things have changed, Yuna said with a small smile. Torvak was deposed 3 months ago. The new council is younger, more open to change. They watched what happened to their empire when they refused to adapt. They do not want to make the same mistake twice. And what do you think? Jun-ho asked. Should we allow it? Yuna considered the question carefully. I think that revenge is easy. Building something better is hard, if we truly believe in what we told the assembly about lifting others up instead of pushing them down. Then we have to give them a chance. Junho nodded slowly. I agree. Send a message back. Tell them we accept their request. But make clear that any embassy on Earth will follow Earth's laws. No special treatment. No exceptions. Understood? Yuna turned to leave, then paused at the door. Ambassador? Do you ever think about what would have happened if the Velorans had not attacked us? Junho stood and walked to the window. He looked out at the stars, at the ships coming and going from the station, at the planet Earth glowing blue and green far below. Every day, he admitted. If they had left us alone, we might have taken another century to develop faster than light travel. We might never have united as a species. We might have stayed on our little planet, fighting among ourselves, never knowing what was out there. He turned back to face her. They attacked our home. They killed our people. And in doing so, they woke something in us that had been sleeping. They forced us to become what we were always capable of being. He paused. In a strange way, we owe them everything. Yuna nodded thoughtfully. I suppose that is the lesson then. You never know what will happen when you attack someone's home. You might create a victim, or you might create something far more dangerous. What is that? Junho asked. Yuna smiled. A species with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. She left the office. Junho remained at the window, watching the stars. 1 year ago, humanity had been alone and afraid. Today, they stood at the center of a new alliance that spanned dozens of worlds. Tomorrow, who knew what they might accomplish? The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, and humanity was only just getting started. The Veloran Empire had learned a painful lesson. When you attack someone's home, you do not break them. You forge them. You turn them into something harder and stronger and more determined than they ever were before. Humanity had been forged in fire. And now, nothing in the universe could stand in their way. Far below the station, Earth continued its endless spin around the sun. Children played in parks, not knowing that their species had changed the galaxy. Workers went to their jobs, not realizing that they lived in the center of a new interstellar power. Life went on, as it always did, as it always would, but in the stars above, humanity's ships patrolled the borders of free space. Humanity's diplomats negotiated with alien governments. Humanity's scientists unlocked the secrets of the universe, and on the memorial wall of Earth Station 1, 14,000 names were carved in eternal stone. A reminder of where it all began. A promise that their sacrifice would never be forgotten. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned to respect them, and that made all the difference.